First, I wanted to ask to question about the writing and the casting, because of course, the heart of the film is Felix's character. So I was hoping you could, Camille, I was hoping you could begin by talking about maybe the initial stages of conceiving of the character, and then maybe how he transformed upon finding Félix for the role.
Okay, well, there's two different questions. Well, I'll start with the first one, with the character. The character of the film was very similar to the ones I developed in the short movies I've been directing before, who was this boy in his 20s and very lonely and trying to, like a bit like, how can you say, a misfit, like somebody very sensitive in a brutal world. And I've been working on that character for quite a while now. And, but this time, it was more like really talking about an outcast and somebody who doesn't own anything, has no belongings. And so I first made up this character with imagining like his energy. I was feeling a vibration of him like wandering in the streets. And it brought me to the world of homeless people, because I think I really wanted a film in the streets and a character living in the streets. And then it brought me to this prostitution world. And so this is how it started. But I didn't think in the beginning, I didn't make a decision like I'm going to make a social movie or a movie about male street prostitution. And I don't think the film is about this. I mean, it's just the background. It's where this story takes place, but it's not a social movie. The film doesn't analyze exactly what it is. I think it's just the fact that the film invites you to live a few moments, a few days with this guy. And so that was the first answer. And then when the script was written, we're starting the casting, and I was told about Félix, and he had played in that film BPM in France, and the movie was being edited at the time, so I couldn't see any images. So we met, and I gave him the script to read, and how could I say, it was I saw that Félix has had a very interesting understanding of the script. He was not trying to analyze the psychology of the character, but it was all about sensation and how to give emotions, I mean, to the audience with a character that is a bit incomprehensible, that has no backstory and doesn't talk. And I think that was an acting challenge. That he understood immediately. And the other thing is, I think what Félix is very generous in his approach of the character. And what's very interesting is that he doesn't, how to explain that, he doesn't see himself play. I mean, when, he doesn't, he's just giving something, and then we work on that, but it's just very sensory on the body, but it's not like, it's a very free way of working, and so I knew we would work. I mean, and it was like very interesting to work like that.
Félix, maybe do you have anything to add? And also, on top of that, sorry for the multiple questions again, but I also, of course, would love to hear about your preparations for this role. It's of course it seems quite intense, quite demanding.
So it's a character that has an intense way of living, of loving, of feeling things. So that was intense. But Camille just said the word that is vibration. It's a character about a vibration that is applicable to every spot he's in, to every people he met. And it's always this vibration that goes around.
And one site where the vibrations are felt very strongly in the film, I think, is of course the body and the way that you handle the body throughout the film. I was curious if you could. I would be curious to hear you talk about your collaboration with your cinematographer and the approach you took to filming the body, because so much of the drama of the film has to do with like the ecstasy and the agony of the body. You know, it's simultaneous or one or the other. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, the body is the core of the film. This is what we worked with. And when we made this film, we had in mind we were making a film about a job, about workers. So it's just work, like any other. And so what we had to do is try to film bodies, but like an ordinary thing. It's just a job, like people going to work. And so the thing is, we tried to normalize it. And the big challenge for the camera was that we had to avoid the film, well, to avoid pornography, because it's like one thing we didn't want to get into. I think it was not relevant here. And the other thing, more difficult to avoid, was the eroticism, because these are no erotic scenes, these are work scenes. And it's kind of difficult to film this and tell the people, this is just work. So, well, we worked on that. It was like, we prepared a lot, because everything was handheld. I mean, shot in handheld camera. So we worked a lot on that and calculate, you know, the angles, how it was supposed to be shot. Of course, it was a huge work with the actors, because they're giving the pace, they're setting. It's just their movement, their body language that shows its work. Because if you're not trained, you arrive like this and you will be appalled, or you will just go into sex scenes like it's erotic. But if it's work, you just do it. And so, prior to that, Félix and the other actors, I made them have a workshop with a choreographer that I knew is a friend of mine. I knew him for like 25 years. And I myself did this workshop with him. And I was so moved in the end of this that I said, you have to do that with the actors. So Félix did it several times. And it was just, through the dance, you can create a specific body language. And it was the idea that we were making a film, and the body is here for the sake of art. So it's just art, so it's dancing. They're giving their body, but their body is just going to be a tool, like a pen if you want to write something, and it's just that. And I just need to use it. So you can evacuate the question of sex. It's not sex, it's not eroticism, it's just the body, and I use it like this. And it was very interesting because during that workshop, I was not there intentionally, and it means that it's a big relief for the actors, because they always want to please the director, which is... Do I have to evacuate?
Set off an alarm.
And since I was not there, I know they were free, and it was just between them and the choreographer. And the other thing, the other huge work of the film was the color grading process. And we had to choose the skin tones. Well, then in the lab, and it took like several weeks to find the right skin tones, because if you make the skins very beautiful, it begins to be a bit erotic, and people are aroused, which is interesting in a sense, but not interesting for us, for the film. And if it's too white, too harsh, it says this is just horrible and becomes judgmental. And so what we wanted is to avoid any judgment in one way or another. And so it was very interesting, because I just discovered how important the color grading process was. It's something, actually in the beginning, when you do a film, you don't care. You say, yeah, we'll say that later. But in the end, you can discover, you can change your film. You can change the sense, the moral of the film just by the color grading. So, yeah, this was important steps for the making of the film.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier it's not a strictly sociological film, nor is it a strictly psychological film, but it maybe has some elements of sociology and some elements of psychology, along with other things. Maybe both of you could talk a bit about in developing the character, before and during the filming how to maintain this balance between sort of like the portrait of the milieu that he's in and the milieu of his clients and so on, but then also sort of what's going on with him in his mind, but also just sort of as a being in the world, you know.
Well, you know, in the beginning I said that. No, I don't know if I said that in the beginning, but yes. I made some, I met a lot of these boys for 2 or 3 years because I joined a charity. Well, it's a long story, but I wanted to know the reality of the world of prostitution, of street prostitution. So I joined the charity and I went to meet this boy for 3 years. And so it helped me a lot to write the script and create the character. And so I think that this is really documented. I wouldn't say it's a documentary, but it's documented, meaning it comes from reality. I just discovered things. And I must say that what is, I would say funny, which is not the word, but what is surprising is when I wrote the first draft, I made everything up, and I say maybe I'm pushing it a bit far. And so when I discovered the reality, I discovered how, how kind and how soft I was compared to reality. And so the film we see, like, I can understand that sometimes there are scenes that are hard to watch, and it's kind of brutal all the way, but it's just nothing compared to the truth of it. So we had that in mind, and I know that these boys, these guys, and the energy and the courage they have were always here with us when we did the film. So that was the first thing, and then we just created a character. I mean, it's just made up. It doesn't exist. He has like reactions. And I think it's interesting because some of these reactions I don't understand myself, even if I wrote it. And I think this is just the greatest thing when you make up something and you can't even understand really well, but it doesn't really matter because it moves you. And I said it's very, I don't know, it's interesting, but I don't really understand everything. And when we worked with Félix, it was great because we were just working on this energy, on this character, and Félix had to transform his energy into something really, really demure. I'm not even sure what demure means, but I feel it's the word. What does it mean?
Like
shy?
Reserved.
Yeah. So yeah, so he had, but the character in the film is demure. Does it fit the character?
Yeah.
To say just checking. And so yeah, we had to work on that so that the guy is not even really reactive, and you can see that all the other guys are very like they don't trust anything. And he trusts everyone. So this is the contrary. So we worked a lot like with animals. And his body language is the one of a dog, who eats in garbage. He's drinking water from the gutter. He's just sleeping in the street. He has these things, when they fight like dogs. So we worked a lot on that. But they were also all the time working with, images like that and never psychology.
Why don't we open it up to the audience before we run out of time? If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll bring you a microphone. So, anyone? Right there? Let's hear it.
Hi. I really enjoyed the film. I just want to say, your next film, can you do something about the pianist? Because I really would like to see his story.
I didn't hear exactly. You told about the pianist, but why did you ask about him?
Yes, your next movie, can you do it about the pianist?
Well, if it can please you. Well, this figure, the thing is, there was one step where I wanted the film to look a bit like a fantastic movie, because to be honest, when I was there on the field for that long, sometimes I felt that what I saw was so unbelievable that I thought I was already in a movie, and I thought it would be interesting to create some elements of something a bit supernatural. So I made some versions, and was like, but it didn't work, so I had to remove it. But I created this character, which is a lot of these boys told me, how could I say, there are some urban legends, and I think it's a way to share the fact they are very scared, because it's a very dangerous place, but they always have to look, to act like they're very solid, fearless, but there's something deep inside. And the other thing is, I was surprised by how these guys are not protected. I mean, nobody's protecting them, but in a city like Paris, if something happens, you can call the police, there are paramedics. Most of the guys don't have any ID, so it's really dangerous, you cannot do anything, and so they're unprotected. And so I can understand that these fears arrive very, very quickly, and I don't know if it answers your question at all, but yes, I will think about it and maybe write something about him, yes.
This is for Félix. If you don't deal with the character's psychology or backstory, then how do you, when you have a moment where the doctor asks you about your family, and it hits us so hard, we're so aware that there's something there.
I think that in my job, the opacity you keep is the exact space where you, viewers of the movie, have your space to create your own emotions. So it's not a choice I make for you, it's just a space I give, we give actors. And I think that we had to put some little tensions, you can't create a character with no infos at all, but just little things like this that I don't even know myself. Like, I never asked myself, like, the backstory of the character. I think is existing only from the beginning to the end of the movie. But it's really about, to give something that is not enough, and then people, they have to do the rest, and they are included in the movie, and that's how you share emotions, I think.
Wait, could you wait for the microphone?
That scene where you, they ask you about your parents. And then you hug the doctor. Did you do that, or was that in the script?
Yeah, it was really hard to shoot because it's about a really thin timing of creating a gesture that is not obviously a creation, and that is with tenderness and stuff. This scene was the first scene we shot for the movie, the whole female doctor scene. So everything was written in the script, actually, because he's quite a control freak, and I swear. So yeah, that's what is movies. I mean, like, it's we are making things that looks out of the script, but everything is in it. But thank you. It's really emotive. Like, it's beautiful.
Hi. I had a question about the ending. I mean, I have my own thoughts about why he did not go to Canada, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts were about it. I mean, I just curious.
Well, the thing is, I think the ending just raises questions, and I do believe that there are no simple answers such complex problems, and we're dealing with lives, and it never that easy. Like, there's no miracle solution. And to me, the answer, you have two endings. There's no one good option, because he has two possible endings. He goes with this man, or he stays in the woods. But in the two cases, he will stay a prostitute. In both cases, it never changes. He's going to stay a prostitute, but he's going to be the property of someone. And the other case, he will still be a prostitute, but on his own. And I think the important thing in this film is that this boy sells everything he has, but there's just one thing he doesn't sell, is his ability to make a choice. Every choices in the film are his own. And I think in the end, I don't know if it's a good choice or not. All I know is that this choice is his, and I think that's the most important thing. And in the end, you see him in the woods in a scene I didn't understand in the beginning, even when we shot it, but I understood that I had this feeling he had to choose this place where he sleeps. But you see, he's making a choice again. He's choosing this place. I don't have any idea why this spot feels particularly good for him, but he does. And we don't care exactly why it's good, but you end up with it's his choice, and it's soothing for him. He's in peace because he's himself, and he didn't sell his soul totally. So I think it was much closer to reality to end like this. But I think it's interesting that it just raises questions. But it's true that sometimes people say, I don't understand, why doesn't he follow this guy? Because it's a better life. No, you didn't say that, but some people say that. And I don't see it as a better life. I think it's more comfortable. But it's true that sometimes we talked about freedom for this film. I mean, I talked about freedom, saying like, this guy is free, and sometimes in the audience, people tell me, how dare you talk about freedom? This is not freedom, this is slavery. And I just discovered that nowadays, people have a very weird conception of freedom, like it's something like it's running naked in the fields with flowers. But to me, real freedom is something extremely violent. If you want to be really free, that's what this guy does, but it's a sacrifice. It's something I will personally never know. I will never be as free as he is. And yes, it costs a lot. And I think it was interesting, especially today. But who can say he's as free as this character is? And I think it all came for this. So it's just a question about how to be free in the moment.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but that's a nice note to end on. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.